What are you making?
I'm mixing up a stew to give corporate a different view. Have a taste. Welcome to the Corporate Kitchen. I'm your host, Tiger, and today on the menu is haters. This is the second episode of this month that I'm very excited to record. One of the reasons is because there's a lot to talk about, and this is a topic most people don't really consider when they're thinking about corporate America. If you hear the term hater, it sounds like slang, and you more so hear it in regards to sports related conversations, not necessarily the corporate world. The reality is, you deal with, and I don't know if this is a word, but haterism every single day, whether it's in the office or out of the office. And ironically, we talk about haters a lot in the office as well. Whether you're a senior person in your career or you're just starting your career, you're going to have to deal with haters, and you are going to be a hater yourself. So what does this actually mean? Well, according to the Merriam-Webster, the definition of a hater as a noun is 1, a person who hates someone or something. 2, a person who actively or aggressively criticizes and disparages something or someone, such as a celebrity or a public figure. Wow, good for you, dictionary. Look at this. This is the definition from the Merriam-Webster. I didn't even have to go to Urban Dictionary for a good definition here, because number 2 is perfect. I'll reread it for you. A person who actively or aggressively criticizes and disparages something or someone. Key words here: active or aggressively criticizes. When we use the term hater, the base word is hate, and that's a stronger word, stronger level of influence, stronger impact. Therefore, the term aggressively makes sense. It seems accurate as a definition for this word. However, the definition reads actively or aggressively criticizes. You don't have to be aggressive to be a hater. If you're actively criticizing something, you are a hater. And that walks us right into our first takeaway. There are 2 types of haters. One is the active criticizer who respects the game. We just call this criticism. If you're giving constructive feedback, that is a type of hating where you're criticizing, you're giving active criticism. We call it constructive to paint this light that it's not aggressive, it's more positive and trying to help you. It's still hating. I mean, you're actively criticizing something. So, first type, respect the game, positive related criticism. Second type is the disrespecting the game hater, where you're just aggressively criticizing. It's not positive, not negative. It is just straight aggressive, just doesn't make any sense. This is when you aren't considering who the person or what the thing is, and you're just criticizing. Usually you see this type of criticism when it comes to envy or jealousy, when someone is doing the exact same job and making more than you, and now you're just hating on that person and talking about, oh, you drive a Ford Explorer, you don't deserve to make that much. What does that have to do with the job that they're doing and how much they're making? It's on that same realm. And again, when we talk about hating, it really is most common with sports. So I'll give you a sports analogy to help you with this. Example here, LeBron James. Let's start with him. If you criticize LeBron and you want to say that I don't consider LeBron the greatest of all time because he didn't do what MJ did in terms of 2 three-peats. He doesn't have enough rings to qualify, or not qualify. He doesn't have enough rings in comparison to MJ, and he didn't do 2 three-peats, which I would consider a harder feat than LeBron going to 10 NBA finals. Peace. That you're a hater, absolutely, because you're criticizing LeBron James of not being the greatest of all time. Got it. But the argument that you're doing is not derogatory to LeBron. It's not painting him in a bad way. It's just in your analysis, you just think he's a step below because of a justifiable rationale. Now, flip that and you say, I don't consider LeBron the greatest of all time because, he just doesn't have the stats to show. That doesn't hold a lot of rationale or justification because if you just look at his stats and fact check, it's like that doesn't make sense, right? You're not making any sense with that comment. You're not really respecting the game, respecting LeBron James for who he is and what he's accomplished. You're just talking the talk. This is the same thing when it comes to his son. But before we get into that, I do want to give you the food analogy here, which I am excited about. And another thing I was excited for this episode for. So we're going to do sports analogies a little more in this episode because it's going to be a little bit easier to digest, make a lot more sense when we're mixing those ingredients. However, the food analogy of what haterism, I got to check if that's actually a word, haterism. But the food analogy is hating is like cranberry sauce. Yes, the cranberry sauce in Thanksgiving. Why is that? Well, number one, there's 2 types of cranberry sauce, and we just did a takeaway for 2 types. There is the jellied, and there is the whole berry, the raw cranberry sauce. And one thing that is very true about cranberry sauce is during the Thanksgiving holiday, it sells. I mean, we're talking tens of millions of cans of cranberry sauce. They make easily almost 0.25% of their sales from this one holiday. With that, right, have this conversation with your friends. Not everybody likes cranberry sauce. You talk to some people, and their hatred of cranberry sauce is the way that we prepare our turkey. We don't use cranberry sauce. It's more so standard stuffing from a box, and therefore we use gravy, and we make like homemade turkey gravy, or we make some type of gravies from scratch. We don't like the jelly, jam, sweet taste. It's more so for our family, our customs, our tradition. We would use a gravy or something similar to that. Peace. Valid, understood. You don't eat the cranberry sauce not because you're criticizing it for being nasty. You're saying that based off of your dishes, it doesn't fit with your dish. Respect the game. Solid criticism. Cranberry sauce, although sells highly during Thanksgiving, doesn't necessarily mean it matches to the palate of taste for your family for what is being prepared. Respectful hater. Solid criticism. Solid hater. You like it. But then there's the other people that says, oh, it's disgusting. We don't have it because it's nasty. It just doesn't taste good. I don't understand people that can have it. And they put those huge gloves. I mean, there's some people that eat more cranberry sauce on their plate than actually dressing. It's nasty. We don't have it. No, we don't make gravy. Okay. I don't understand people who can have cranberry sauce. You're not respecting the game. You're just a bad hater at that point. If you truly don't appreciate it for what it is and what it can do, you're a bad hater. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day of what type of hater are you going to be? Are you going to educate yourself and acknowledge what it is or who it is and be constructive about it? Or are you just going to be negative for the sake of being negative and, try to kick a person while they're there? And it's that idea of, oh, cranberry sauce is just nasty. They're going to sell tens of millions of units, whether you as an individual don't like it or not. So do you think they're worried about your disrespect towards it? Absolutely not. You can have a celebrity that says cranberry sauce is nasty. Taylor Swift could taste cranberry sauce and say it's nasty. Sales may dip a little bit. People are still going to buy cranberry sauce. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, where it's like, are you going to, again, respect it and provide some constructive criticism, or are you just going to be negative and be the envious or come across as envious, jealous of the success that cranberry sauce has? At the end of the day, there's many ways you can have Thanksgiving. You're not being forced to eat the cranberry sauce. It exists. It's there. So do you respect it or do you not? A lot of haterism comes down to, and if haterism's not a word, I apologize in advance. It sounds good coming off the tongue. But if being a hater means anything, it's about respect. Respect at the end of the game. Not game, at the end of the day. Here's another example of this. Let's go back, rewind. I mentioned LeBron James. Second level of haterism for LeBron James is his son. And this brings us into our second takeaway. So I'm going to say it slow and say it twice so that you follow me. Second takeaway. If you are successful, then you will have haters. But having haters doesn't mean you are successful. One more time. If you are successful, then you will have haters. But having haters doesn't mean you're successful. A key to success is having haters. You get your first hater, but it doesn't mean you're successful. LeBron James has a son, Bronny James, who's in the NBA playing for the Los Angeles Lakers right now. And there are many people in sports media that actively and aggressively criticizes him. The kid has been in the league. First of all, he's a kid. Give him a break. Secondly, he's been in the league less than a year. He hasn't even finished his rookie season. He hasn't even played a substantial amount of minutes for you to even have a portfolio of his skill set. We see in the NBA a lot now that there are players who were a top 3 pick in the draft win most improved player of the year like 3 to 4 years later. It's kind of a head scratcher because that seems like normal development. If you're a top 3 pick in the draft, you should be a good player and you should develop into a really good player. So getting like the most improved award is kind of like, no, they're developing as they're supposed to. And the reason I bring that up is if you can respect the fact that, hey, you're a top 3 player, therefore I do value you as having a high level of talent. Therefore, in 3 to 4 years, I am expecting you to be an all-star because I drafted you that high because I thought your potential was that way. If you can think in that terms, then why is Bronny James getting so much hatred, so many haters before he's done anything? He hasn't done anything. Let the kid do something first. Let him play a full season before people are hating on him. Right now, you can't really provide any constructive hating because he hasn't done anything. He hasn't had success. You're going to say, oh, well, he's in the NBA and the odds to get in the NBA are super hard. Got it. But at the same time, I mean, nepotism, right? I mean, like he was going to get into the NBA whether he liked it or not. It was something that was bound to happen for him. The NBA wasn't the goal. It was to be successful in the NBA. He hasn't been successful in the NBA. And why I focus specifically on that is because the criticism against him is how he's playing in the NBA. It's not whether or not he got to the NBA. It's how he's playing. People say, oh, he's not doing this. He's not doing that. Guys, he hasn't had any success in the NBA because he hasn't had time to develop. Chill out. You're not being a good hater. You're not respecting the game. You're actually disrespecting the game because you're showing some level of, I don't know if it's envy, if it's jealousy, whatever, but you're disrespecting the game because you're not appreciating him for what he is, or who he is, as a rookie walking in to professional basketball and going through a development period. They sent him to the development league to get some development. He's not successful yet. He's building his success. Give him time. So if you're hating on him right now, you're just a bad hater. So let's revert this back to the corporate world and let's get back into the office. What does this mean? An example of this in the corporate world is when a new CEO is named for a company. There will be a lot of feedback on that new CEO prior to that person doing anything in the company. This is bad hating. You have no idea what this person's going to do. They haven't shown anything. They haven't done anything. They haven't been successful or unsuccessful. Understood that you can go and look at their body of work that they've done at previous companies, or if they're a promotion within the same company, and see from their previous experiences how they've performed and have good, solid, constructive criticism on the past. But that would be on the past. You would say, oh, when this person's CEO, but when this person was vice president of quality, they had this program that didn't work for X number of reasons and they didn't recognize that. And you're criticizing the VP of quality position, not the CEO. If you're telling me that what they did as VP of quality should not have them in a position to be CEO, you're comparing apples and oranges here, right? You're a bad hater. Criticizing the VP of quality job position, past position for whatever they did, and said that made you a bad VP of quality at that time. Got it, right? Constructive. You're talking about a very specific point in time. If you detail the rationale makes sense, and you're objectively identifying what's went wrong. Understood. I can respect that. But if we're going to use that to invalidate the person being CEO and the person hasn't done anything as CEO, makes you a bad hater. Going back to cranberry sauce again, it's like I said, if you're talking about the culture of what you eat during Thanksgiving and it's just you make your homemade turkey gravy and grandma makes it because she uses the innards from the turkey to peace, right? You have something different. But to say because of that gravy, cranberry sauce is nasty, yeah, then at that point you're reaching and you're not respecting the game for how it is. Another good example in corporate is the criticism of leaders who are not nice people. There are leaders that get to the executive ranks and they're just not nice people at all. They are really mean to their subordinates. Of course, for some reason, their peers and upper management allow that behavior to happen, but the reputation they have in the company is that they are just not the friendliest person to be around. When you're criticizing that, that is valid constructive criticism. You are a good hater when you are able to give examples of, hey, that person doesn't have the best personality, they're actually rude. Here's a couple of examples of how they were rude. You're being a good hater. Just because the subject of what the hatred is being surrounded by is personality, and that can be very subjective, that's fine. That doesn't make you a bad hater just because the topic is something that's a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more subjective. If you come forward with the facts, with the explanation, you're a good hater. And does that make you a bad person for being a good hater? No. And I need you to remember that. Being a hater is okay. You will find yourself being a hater. A lot of times in corporate, you find yourself being a hater in regards to two things: money and position. When you realize that some people make a lot of money, a lot more money than you do in positions higher than you, or maybe positions lateral to you as a peer, and you're like, how are you making that much money? It doesn't make sense. My qualifications are higher than yours. Like, what? I don't understand how you're making all this money. Then you also have it in terms of position where you may be in mid-level management and the person you're hating on is in senior management, and the person started after you did. You came into the workforce, you have 15 years of experience, you're in middle management. This little kid came out with their master's 5 years ago. They went straight from their bachelor's to their master's with no additional work experience, graduated with their master's, hopped right in. 5 years later, they're in senior management. And now you're hating because you're trying to either aggressively or constructively criticize the fact that your path to get to where you were was very different than the path that they took to get even higher. Peace. You will find yourself a hater sometimes. And think about that person in that example that is senior management. That person is going to have a lot of haters for getting up the levels so quickly. At some companies, you got to be very careful of your haterism, right? Because that second example specifically, when it comes to positions, it gets very difficult to be objective when you are hating. A lot of hating is subjective. I'm comparing myself to that person, and it's like, I could do better than that. Is that person silly? Blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of self comparison. And because of that, the third takeaway that we have to talk about is long term hating is not healthy. Long term hating is not healthy at all. Short term hating, where you identified a gap, case closed. Or you identified some fact, something that you believe doesn't or shouldn't work properly, but it did work for that person. Peace. You got to make peace, and it has to be done. If you are in a position and you're hating on someone else because they make more than you, the answer to that is put yourself in a position to go make more or go make more. 5 years later, if you're still hating on that person that made more than you, what are you doing? At that point, you're not hating on that person. The call is coming from inside the house. You're hating on yourself. If you go to a restaurant and you say, I want the steak, and they didn't cook your steak well, and you criticize the whole restaurant, but then you come back to the restaurant, and then you keep coming back to the restaurant, but you're hating on the restaurant? Like, who's really at fault here? It's not healthy to have a criticizing relationship long term. It's not okay in corporate. It's not okay in your personal life. Think about the people that have goals of, let's just say they want to lose weight. And if you get really, really hard on yourself and you criticize yourself too aggressively, you will actually become your own roadblock to your success. That's true in the corporate world too. If you don't stop and action the criticism before it becomes too late, then you will create a self inflicted roadblock that now makes your hatred unhealthy and puts a glass ceiling over yourself that prevents you to be from where you want to be. We're going to talk more at the table. I have a conversation with a friend a lot of times, and you're listening. I know you're listening, and you know exactly who you are, that does this subjective comparative analysis with themselves to other people and questions the two items, pay and position. How is this person getting to this position and I'm at this level? Well, two different stories, two different lives, two different journeys. You don't know what someone else has been through when you're being subjective like that. If you knew and you want to objectively criticize and be a good hater and say, okay, this person did this, 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 this. So maybe if I, took the action and got more experience or cross functional experience, I too can move up. You will solve your own problem. But the real reason a lot of people aren't solving their problems is because they do like this friend does, very subjective, very non-factual. So now you're just hating for the sake of hating because this person is successful and you're not in your eyes, right? Because we're still talking subjectively. So subjectively, you think this person is successful. You feel as though you're not, and you're continuously kicking yourself down to the point, well, now, guess what? The biggest hater in the world has now become yourself. And now, instead of being able to hate other people more and be able to criticize people more to try to learn, you become your biggest enemy. And now you have to fight yourself. So just be careful with that. Good hatred is okay. Bad hatred is just going to lead you into an abyss that is very difficult to get out of. Going back to the store with the cranberry sauce, if you are around during Thanksgiving, you're going to see a lot of that cranberry sauce on the shelves in the grocery store. Totally normal because they sell so many. Are you going to be such a bad hater that you buy them all and prevent other people from having it? Are you going to knock them all to the ground to make them try to burst and have other people not enjoy it? No. The people that hate cranberry sauce to that level, what do? They walk past it and move on. I hate it. Whether you're a good hater or a bad hater, I really hope you're not. I've never heard this story, and I really hope you're not in the store knocking cranberry cans to the ground, right? I never heard anyone doing that. And if you feel that way, seek help. Don't do that at all. Uh, but for the most part, whether people are a good hater or a bad hater to cranberry sauce, what do? They move on. I don't like cranberry sauce, so now I go to the next aisle so that I can make like my gravy. Or I had like people that make ham and used like the mustard instead of turkey. Yeah, whatever your culture is, what you and the family want to do, totally fine. Totally fine. What's nice about it, and especially on this example of Thanksgiving, is that it's one day. Cranberry sauce is still on the shelves and it's still very visible around all throughout the year. It's just more in your face when it comes to the Thanksgiving period because a lot of people buy it. And if you don't like it, you peace and you move on. And that's what you have to do in a lot of situations of being a hater. Peace, move on. Just move on. And if you're on the opposite end and you are receiving haters, I want to go back to takeaway 2 before we wrap up. If you are receiving haters, you identify someone as a hater, someone that's criticizing you, don't make the assumption that you're having success and that you're doing great. A lot of clarity in terms of how to describe this and what this looks like comes into political conversations. When you're talking about a liberal hating a conservative versus a conservative hating a liberal, the one thing that people tend to do, right? So let's just say you're on the conservative side and you're receiving haters from the liberal side. The one thing that people do when it comes to politics, and I don't know why, is evaluate the hater. They would say, oh, you're a liberal because of X, Y, and Z, and you're coming from this perspective, blah, blah. If you have healthy conversations about politics, and that's where most of it goes. And you see this on the other side too. Liberal, if you're a liberal and you're getting haters from the conservative side, you're evaluating that person as a conservative voter, and it's like this person is that and this is why they think that way and I don't believe that's good. And a lot of constructive and good conversations can happen in regards to politics, especially when you have this objective analysis and rationale, when you're like trying to identify that this person is aligned with the party because of this factual information about that person. When you can use the facts to have conversations, you can build good conversations. The problem is that subjectivity comes in, and politics is one of those subjects that people get really, really sensitive about. And especially nowadays, it can really drive conversations. The point that I want to bring, going back into corporate and what I said about getting haters, is if you feel yourself getting a hater, you have to evaluate that hater to understand where they're coming from and if they're a good or a bad hater. Because if you're successful, you're going to you're going to have haters if you're successful. It just comes down to it. Not everyone's going to like you. And I'll say that again. Not everyone's going to like you. But they don't need to. We're not in this game for everyone to like us. And by the way, if you can find and get good haters, they will be constructive and they will help you grow. If they are constructive for more than 7 years, the hater itself is becoming a little unhealthy. But a good hater will identify your faults, identify some of the issues in your leadership or in the way that you go about things, and you can learn and build off those. If they're a bad hater, they're just a bad hater, and now that's just something else to look at or something else to hear. At the same time, what's also nice about getting a hater is that it gives you an opportunity to evaluate where you're at. You can have a good hater and you're still not successful
you still haven't reached a level of success or achieved success with what you're doing. Very good example of this is we talked about it in with consultants on how there are many times that consultants will recommend an action or a project to be taken within a company that has been done before. It's not a new idea, it's just a new person presenting it. A good hater will come to the table with how the project was done before, the results of it, how it worked, how it didn't work, and recommendations of why we shouldn't go through this project again. You're a good hater. You're actively criticizing the judgment of the consultants in a positive manner. Solid hater. Appreciate it. Does that mean that the consultant, because you're right, you're hating on the consultant's recommendation. Does that mean the consultant is successful? No, the consultant hasn't done anything. The consultant just provided a recommendation. That recommendation hasn't been done. Nothing's been done. Here's the project that we recommend based off of what we did. Does that mean that consultant has been successful in what they were supposed to do? No. This is all actually a part of, or should be a part of, the recommendation that they built. They should be building recommendations based off of the facts and also feedback that they receive. Now, if they've already sent you the bill and here is the outbrief project, and this is the first time you're seeing the outbrief project, and now you're hating on it, I mean, the check's already cashed. So, from the consultant standpoint, they're successful because they finished their job and they got paid for it. And at that point, the hatred that they're receiving, even if it's good hatred, counts to their success, and it's hatred related to their success. I provided a good recommendation. I got paid for it. Everything that you're bringing to the table now is after the fact. But from the consultant standpoint, they're going to feel successful. They got paid. I mean, what more could they want? What more could your hatred provide them? Nothing. At that point for them, it's just noise. So remember, when you're going through haters, the three things. Number one, there are two types of haters: good haters and the bad haters. The ones respecting the game that provide solid, good, constructive criticism, and then the bad haters who disrespect the game, whether it's envy, whether it's jealousy, just not a good hater, super negative. Two, if you are successful, then you'll have haters, but having haters doesn't mean you are successful. You have to do an analysis if you ever get a hater to understand, are you actually successful? Are you actually doing something and the case is closed? Did you finish your career? Did you finish that project? Did you go through the success criteria and meet it? And this is all coming after the fact? Or is this hater giving you criticism before you even started or within the progress? It's one or the other. There's no gray area for this. You either you can have haters, but you either are successful or you're not successful. If you didn't finish the project, you're not successful. You're in the midst of the project. And that feedback that you're getting from the hater could be valuable to making that project successful. So don't dismiss it if you haven't hit your keys to success yet. Third, it's not healthy long term. If you find yourself being a hater, reel it in. It's not something that's healthy long term. It's not a spot that you want to be in long term, even if you're a good hater, right? Criticizing someone constructively for more than like a year is borderline obsession. Let's focus on something else. Also, just being a constructive criticizer your whole life, even if it's on various people, various subjects, that's not necessarily healthy either. Sometimes you close the mouth and just listen instead of talking. You don't always have to be the one that has to say something to identify an issue. Sometimes just listen. Sometimes just be a listener. So don't hate all the time. Haters are good. Haters are good to have. Don't do it all the time. The reality is the majority of people I'm talking to who are listening to this podcast are not paid to be haters. You're not a podcaster that's supposed to just talk trash about a certain subject. You're not in sports reporting where you're reporting bad news in order to get viewers. You're not a news anchor or a news outlet that may get more viewership the more negative they are. We're not talking about reality television. If you are one of those people that are listening, thanks for listening. The rest of us that are in corporate, knock it off. Or I'm bringing cranberry sauce to your Thanksgiving dinner. And with that, we'll turn off this stove, take off the thinking apron, and let's just say the dishes will get done later. This topic wasn't a big mess, but if we learned something today, then we know there's a little cleaning up to do. I do want to talk this topic more, maybe trade stories about this soon, like this Thursday soon. I hope to see you there. Thanks for being in the corporate kitchen today. I'm your host, Tiger. Until next time.